Hello and welcome. Well, today we are looking at energy crisis effects on labor. Well, May Day is just gone by and we all saw the march and the concerns of labor, mainly energy. And labor says we are beginning to lose hope because it's been one date after the other, one excuse after the other. And as of now, 12,000 and over people have been laid off. And there's no end in sight other than a promise which we are all hoping that this time is going to be the last promise. Indeed, is labor, completely exonerated in what's happening now, or are they to take some of the blame? We've always heard about labor's attitude. Oh, if you go to the ministries at 5 o'clock and it's, 3 o'clock on Fridays, there's nobody there. So the attitude of labor. However, we always hear the agitation saying we want more pay, don't sack us, but we never hear the agitation that says, look, let's be effective, let's produce more, because all this wage bill, it's not because there's too many people working, but it's because there's too many people not generating enough. Indeed, if they were generating enough, we may need to hire more people. And that's what we're going to discuss to find out what the middle ground is going to be. When I come back, I will introduce my guest. My name is Nana Sakwa, and this is PM Express. Thank you very much for staying. Energy crisis effects on labor. And with me to discuss this very sensitive and unending issue is my own brother, Edward Kariwe, Deputy Secretary General, General Agricultural Workers Union, GAO. My brother, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. He's Deputy General Secretary.
Deputy General Secretary. I always get it wrong.
The Secretary General is at the level of the TUC.
Okay.
All other unions have General Secretaries.
I see.
So you have General Secretary of Agricultural Workers Union, you have Deputy General Secretary.
Thanks for the correction.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And happy belated May Day.
Thank you.
If there's anything.
It's not belated, it's still within the May Day.
It's still within the May.
So,
yes. So we're in the Workers' Month.
Yeah.
Let me just start by asking, are we blowing things out of proportion with regards to doomsday? Media would like to hype things up, blow things up. Are we blowing things up with regards to doomsday, or things are that bad?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. It's like a glass of water. When it is half full, you can say that this glass is half full. You can also say that it is half empty. There's a negative connotation to it, and then there's a positive connotation to it. But the reality is that the glass is not full. So if you take our energy situation, the reality is that we don't have enough energy. But how do we present it? Some use terminologies, words that indeed connote hopelessness. Some also use terminologies that connote that there's hope, even though we have energy crisis. So it's not, and also we should understand that the energy crisis is not today's issue. It has been with us for some time, in the sense that in 1982, between 1982 and 1985, there was the first doomsday, which we had to deal with. And then between 1988 and 2000, there was another one. And all of us who can easily remember that between 2006 and 2007, we had a doomsday crisis. You see, so it tells us that it will recur. Even if we resolve it today, depending on the way we resolve it, it will recur. But do we want it to continue? That is where we need to prepare ourselves for.
The president said that it was a temporary measure and that it will soon go away. Now, how temporary is labor think this issue has been? Since we're all complaining that it's been 3 years. 3 years of doomsday, is it temporary enough or is it temporary too much?
Well, if you look at, you have to look at temporary in relative terms. It could even be 1 week. Yes, someone will say it's temporary. It could be 3 years, and someone will say it's a temporary issue. If you take the first doomsday, which occurred between 1982 to 1985, how many years? Was that temporary? if you take the second doom saw, which occurred between 1988 and then 2000, was that temporary? Then you come to the third one, 2006 and 2007. That one is just about 2 years, very shorter than the rest. Now this one is about 3 years. Now, and if the message is that it's temporary, what does it, in relative to what has happened before, or in relative to what? Even though it may be temporary this time, the impact may be huge than before, because the economic activities at that time may not be like today. The competitiveness around the globe may not be like today. The level of economic activity that we want to, our perspectives. Now we are middle income. So we are a different country. We are an emerging economic power. What amount of energy do you need? In a day, if you lose energy, what does that mean to you? So it's temporary from the perspective of the government, but certainly it has huge consequences so far as production and then economic activities are concerned.
I mean, so on the basis of half full, half empty, what is Labour seeing the energy as a half empty situation of no energy, or as a half full situation of no energy?
Well, because we are privy to the history of this country, because TUC itself has been in existence since 1945. So we have a wealth of experience in what happened in this economy from colonial era to date. We only have hope, and it is good to have hope. We also acknowledge that measures have been put in place to address the issue. We also are aware that some deadlines have been given, and those deadlines have not been met. But it is not enough for us to throw our hands in despair and then think that it is a hopeless situation. Well, we still have that hope.
Well, I find it amazing because, and I read a little bit of your speech here. It says, Your Excellency, you have found yourself in the driver's seat at a time that we are facing one of the severest crises since independence. You need to provide leadership that will lead us out of this severe crisis. We agree with you that we should not just manage the crisis, but we should fix it. But it's taking too long to fix. We are beginning to lose hope.
Certainly. Certainly. That's what I'm saying, our perspective. So the same way, someone says that no, it will be fixed soon. Oh, it's not a hopeless situation. We said yes. We also had hope in it, but we are beginning to lose that hope. It's beginning to dawn on us that it's a hopeless situation. And that is why we call on government to fix. And you can see that statement saying that it is one of the crises that this country has experienced. So we are acknowledging that there have been crises in the past. And like I've given the statistics, that is the case. And these are factual instances. But can we stop one day to say that doomsday will not be part of it? We are looking for this type of leadership. And that's why we are calling on the president, we are calling on the government to provide us that type of leadership that, look, never ever shall this country experience doomsday. What are the measures? We want to see them clearly.
Has TUC got faith in the president? Because you see, through no fault of his, has given so much dates. And I believe the president can leave his house with a date guest. Some engineer, some technician must have given that information to him that, oh, Mr. President, by next week, this thing will be fixed. He then mounts a platform and tells the nation, his children, said, oh, don't worry, by Tuesday, this will be fixed. And one after the other, they failed him. However, we've never had anybody being reprimanded. So we all still, the buck still stops at the door. I mean, do you still have faith that these last dates that we are giving us is going to work, and why?
Certainly, we can have our own disappointments. Nevertheless, we have hope in our president. We have hope in our government. Because we have not yet reached a point, I believe, to say that not only the Labour, but Ghanaians say that we don't have hope. Because we you also have to compare our situation with other situations in other countries. I see whether is it that it has never, I mean, is the worst among others. Within Ghana, we are feeling a pinch. But if you compare it with other countries, what is the situation like? So that, therefore, gives us hope.
But is that not the danger where we choose a very short yardstick and say, we are taller than this, therefore we are okay. When the actual norm and the big boys out there, the big players, we say, oh no, as for these guys, they are too high. We can't target them. Let's look at Togo, let's look at Benin, let's, some country that hasn't got energy and say, yeah, we are better than them.
I personally sometimes have problems when people compare us with the US, Britain, Europe, and so on.
No, but we can, the Malaysias and the Singapores?
Yes, even with them.
Well, why can't we compare ourselves with them?
I'm saying when you compare, you still also have to be circumspect. Let me tell you, the Mobutu Sese Seko ruled Zaire for about 32 years. Suharto also ruled Indonesia for about 32 years. When both leaders left, they were both dictators. One left his country. Indonesia had, when Suharto was leaving the seat, the economy had grown 5 times. When Mobutu was leaving Zaire, he was richer than his own country. Both were dictators. you get it? And dictatorship is not good in any form, yet one was better than the other. We have to continue to compare ourselves actually with Indonesia and Malaysia. It's good to do that. And we need to learn lessons from that. So we should compare. To say that our situation is not something that we should be complacent about. But sometimes, do we sit back to reflect and say that is it not also the case that we have over-bloated expectations? One, if you look at our energy crisis and you have just this short history about what has been happening to this country, will you think that it's easy to just solve the energy crisis overnight? No. Even if you look at the measures that have been put in place, I personally do not think that we are seeking to solve the energy crisis into the long term, but they are short-term measures. And that is what we have been failing. When it occurred in 1982 to 1985, what measures did we put in place to ensure that we never experience it? It came back 1988 to 2000. We did not. In 2006 to 2007, it came again. What we'll be looking up to is that we should be putting in an infrastructure that would deliver about 15,000 megawatts, 20,000 megawatts in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, whereby it's far and beyond our consumption needs. So that any investor, because we are now a middle income country, we need to launch into heavy duty industrialization. Any investor who will go into that should not be thinking about energy, but should be thinking about market, should be thinking about raw materials and not energy. This is what, for some of us, we are not seeing, and we encourage government to do that. Some of us are with the view that we should go nuclear. Some say it's not the best. Other things are being suggested here and there. But we would like government, in the midst of all these suggestions, to come out and take a bold decision beyond the short-term views that each of us are proposing. That is where we call on our governments to do.
Because, I mean, Dumso seems to be the major or primary concern on Labour's, agitation list. From the placards that were lifted, you could tell people were suffering. The businesses that are literally existing for their generator. I mean, basically, you are just living so that you can buy fuel for your generator. President goes ahead and makes a statement that, oh, the smart ones are hiring. And, it didn't go down well because people are thinking, hold on, people are sacrificing a lot. You take multimedia, for instance, I'm sure we shut between 12 to 4 so that we can keep a couple of people working. Otherwise, you have to use their wages to fuel the generator. The smart ones are working, so the not so clever ones are not expanding?
Well,
what's TUC's reaction on that?
Well, I think we haven't yet reacted to that. I believe the statement just came out. Is that not it?
Well, the statement, yeah.
If there's a reaction, that reaction would have been featured in our in the Secretary General's May Day speech, because
no, I think it was made at May Day.
Yeah.
This speech came at the May Day.
You mean the president or our Secretary General?
No, president himself.
That's what I'm saying, that he made it on the May Day. We have not yet reacted to
of course.
it. You get it? But what we need to appreciate is this. There are different perspectives as to how to deal with workplace cost management. Employers have their own view, and some employers run to labor to cut down labor when they have the least challenges in their cost management. Others say that no, labor is not the problem. We can cut costs in other areas and still sustain labor. Now, how you balance this becomes the prerogative of the particular workplace. So, in the midst of all these things, smart ones will survive. The crisis, it has come. Whether one even states that or not, whether it was stated by the president or not, those who are not smart will not survive within this era.
No, see,
those businesses that are smart will survive.
But the argument is that, I mean, Coca-Cola being a big industry, and I'm sure they are not shortchanged in any way, are laying off people because of the amount of fuel. I'm sure they will need to just power these generators. Blue Skies is thinking of clearing 1,000, and he's only got 1,500 people. So he's cutting like 2/3 of his staff just to stay afloat. Are we saying that they are not prudent enough?
Well, but it's not labor that has made that statement. Why do we explain that statement? We are not. It's not labor that made it.
No, but labor should defend and say, no, Mr. President, it's not that we are being not smart, but maybe it's coming from your quarters. You haven't given us enough energy.
What I'm telling you is that how many days ago that statement was made? Labor will have to digest it, among other things, and then use our structures to come out to see whether it is worth coming out publicly, or we may disagree and yet will not come out publicly. If you look at our workings, it's not everything we also react, even though we may not agree with that. And we have to go through our structures to come out. And when we come out, we don't feel ashamed that we've come out on a particular issue. For instance, labor since 2014 made it clear, 2013 made it clear that IMF is not a solution to our problem.
I was going to go to that, so let's go.
Yeah, we said government should not go to it. Today we are still saying it. Government has defied our advice and have gone there, but we still insist that no, we don't think that is the solution, even though you've gone there. And we are hearing some pieces of information here and there that come 2017, they will lay off workers. But before then, we had to also negotiate some of the deals with government. It's not all the time that we are on the streets. It's not all the time that we are in the media to shout. But much of our work also is done behind the scenes to negotiate these deals. The beginning of the year, we had to negotiate a minimum wage. We had to also negotiate a pay increase for public sector workers. Inherent or as part of the package for arriving at a deal was that government should not lay off workers. That was accepted. And government said they will do everything possible not to lay off workers. But then we also encourage government to use other measures to cut down the wage bill. But we also believe that it is not the wage bill does not match the number of workers on the payroll. There are ghost names and so on. For instance, look at what was happening at the National Service Secretariat.
It was 22,000.
That could have continued, and then the wage bill, because all their emoluments also goes to the wage bill. Why should people be doing that? So if government takes such measures, they can reduce the wage bill without necessarily doing what? Cutting down labor. I don't think that they cut down labor at the National Service Secretariat service. That's why the wage bill has come down. But that the money to seal the leakages. And that, from ministry to ministry, certainly they will find some of these leakages and then they will deal with it. So we want government to use such measures to rather reduce the wage bill than go for the easier means of just cutting down labor, when in actual fact it has not happened. And we are also concerned about that, because how can IMF today advise government that lay off workers, don't increase wages, when years back in 1983-85, when we had the economic recovery program and the structural adjustment program, all was meant to reduce government expenditure, and we had layoff of workers across the public sector. And yet today, you are still talking about wage bill being high. So it means the policy they pushed on government at that time was not right, and we kicked against it.
No, could it be that it was right, but then government, once you get off the list, you know, they have their blank checks again and then go shopping?
Well, we don't have record that since those things were implemented, Ghana was better, and then we went back. No, we never became better. We became HIPIC.
No, but after we went through HIPIC,
yes,
we went through HIPIC, we seemed to be okay, and then elections was round the corner, and then right after elections, that all hell broke loose. So could it be that, you know, it was the election cost that sends us back here?
No, for some of us, HIPIC was not even the solution. HIPIC wasn't the solution, because there were structural problems. If you don't address the structural problem, you don't address the problem permanently. You only address it on a short while. And that's what happened.
You think we had another option other than HIPIC?
Well, there was another option than HIPIC. Why? Because one, if, for instance, what they did at that time was to say that so much indebtedness, you had borrowed so much, you were to pay so much interest, we were forgiving you of all those indebtedness. Don't pay back.
That's if you go HIPIC.
But that does not mean that come the next time, you should not come and borrow. Because they have not given you money to be able to guarantee that you don't come to borrow. For instance, I don't know the very people who also pushed us to open up our markets to the extent that local businesses are collapsing because cheaper imports have flooded our market. Now, in such a scenario, economic scenario, you eventually become a borrower again because you are not able to generate enough revenue. You know, so that measure itself, even though it was necessary, it was just a short while. And that is where we are back to it. If today they even forgive us our debts, which people are saying the HIPIC facility is no more there, granted that they come out with another facility and they forgive us, and we are not able to address the structural problems of our economy by, for instance, today we have signed on to the EPA, which allows them to now have 75% of our markets without duty. It will make nonsense of local production because their goods will flood the market, local production will go down, unemployment will come up, and then incomes will fall.
But this time, do you think we had another option, or IMF was the only way out for us?
Well, we think we had another option. One, what we have all along been, even under government also said that they went to IMF just to consolidate the homegrown policies. We are saying that, yes, the beginning of the year, I think that was last year and this year, the State of the Nation address clearly stated the homegrown measures. We support that. We supported that. But why should you go to IMF? Whenever you invite IMF into your life, into your economy, what they do is they come and take over the economic management of your country indirectly by taking away the policy space that you have to decide on what to do and what not to do. You know, and this time is so dangerous for us. Now that we have IMF here, we also have economic partnership there. So we are attacked on two fronts. The economic partnership, which is supposed to be limiting itself to WTO compatibility, has extended to areas that even WTO, those things are rejected. Now today with the economic partnership agreement, if you have to spend your budget, you must be mindful that you cannot decide that I want to prop up this particular sector of the economy by sending my budget there. For instance, we have made noise about the way Parliament went to China and refurbished their chamber. We said no, they could have gone to Kumasi to do that and so on. Now, with the EPA, no, you have to subject it to public tender. You know, and European companies are also entitled to bid for that tender. And given the experience advantage, then they will bid the local producers and then take the budget money again. Before EPAs, government could decide and say, look, we are going to pick these people to do it.
Is Labour not strong enough to say, look, because it seems as if everything that government proposes, Labour will come in and say, oh no, this is not good for us, but government will always have their way.
Well, I don't also think that government always have their way.
Well, name one thing that you stop. You haven't stopped.
Because I also think, let me tell you, there are many things I can. Do you know that ADB was supposed to be sold in 2007?
Okay, we hear the whispers.
So who stopped it? It was the pressure by Labour.
I mean, I'm going to bring...
Do you also remember that Ghana Commercial Bank, I think that was 2003 or thereabout, was supposed to be divested to a so-called strategic investor? We stood up and kicked against it. Today, what is the position of Ghana Commercial Bank? There are many of those things. In any case, if you think that Labour impact is not felt, what you need to do is look at a situation where there's no Labour. Then you will be able to now know the importance of Labour. If you think that this is your smoke, it's nothing. Look at a situation where you are seated here without a smoke. That is how you appreciate what your smoke does in your life. And that is it. And I'm also saying that government does not have absolute power, neither Labour. So even though government, you think that they don't listen to us, I don't think so. Even with the IMF arrangement now, I believe so much concessions have been made. In any case, let me give you a clear example, how we have forced government to do what they would not have done. The beginning of the year, IMF had issued some statements through their so-called experts speaking everywhere that government should not increase wages and there should be a wage freeze. We said no, government, you can't do that, and we will not allow IMF to dictate to us. Government, we sat down during our negotiation, made sure that we had a salary increase. I don't think that if Labour had not been in existence, government would have gone ahead on its own, given the pressure that is on it by IMF and World Bank and other bilateral partners, would have gone ahead to increase salaries by that margin. I'm saying by that margin, even if they wanted, they could do it, not by that margin.
Okay, so I'm now thinking about the Tier 2 pension, I'm thinking about Merchant Bank, and ADB, ADB. I mean, that is just, I mean, whoever came up with that idea, I mean, you should give him a medal. That you sell your house and then go back and rent it and rent the parking space. I mean, who comes up with that deal? I mean, is the managing director saying that if his father left him that property, he will sell it because his family is now too big and then rent from whoever he bought it from so that within a year he dissipates how much he sold it for? I mean, Labour should kick him.
Certainly, I think you would have heard that the General Secretary of UNICOF, Union for Industry and Commerce, they had a press conference and then they outlined a number of issues. We are certainly not happy with that. Look, in this country, we don't know how to nurture. When we nurture a company and it becomes viable, the only thing is to sell it out. We are not happy that even HFC is being taken over by a foreign investor. And HFC has been the most, it's a household name when it comes to home finance. And many people, particularly public sector workers, have gotten their homes through home, HFC support and so on. Today, the ownership is changing. Mm-hmm. Now, you come to ADB, and we fought against it, and it has come. It's just, you just can't understand what is happening. That land where the building has been put up, why should we even allow somebody to come and own more shares in that structure than them? Again, ask, as Ghanaians, what do we think? If you look at Ambassador Hotel, so-called, that whole company is privately owned. I mean, that hotel is, and it's at a vantage point. How many Ghanaians can go there? We've heard in the media where some discrimination was being made even against gender, female who went there without male partners. Mm-hmm. That was, it can't happen in the Ghanaian culture. It's not permissible. When we have our ECOWAS meetings, presidents coming over and so on, where do they stay? They stay in some of those hotels. When they make the money, where does the money go? The money is repatriated. How much of the what they use there comes from Ghana in terms of daily usage, in terms of furnishing and so on? How much of it is coming from Ghana? But this is how we have allowed ourselves to I don't know why we are in a rush to sell out that land. We thought the building was ADB. When they were putting it up, we were very, very happy. Very, very happy that the company, the bank that we have fought for, has made it. The bank is now in my village. You go everywhere, that bank is there. And you are happy that this is an agreed bank and more.
Not knowing they're taking a funny decision.
Then, after it has gotten to a certain point, something funny is happening. Certainly we are not happy. And it shouldn't even be Labour alone. It shouldn't be Labour alone. It should be all of us. It should be all of us. We should stand up against some of these things.
I'm going to take a break here, and when I come back, we're now going to look at workers' attitude. And I want to see one day that we get up there and agitate against workers to say, listen, time efficiency and hard work and dedication, and maybe once we get all that intact, we won't be complaining about wage bill because we'll be making more than excess. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying, and we are discussing energy crisis and its effects on labor. But we're going to digress a little bit and come back to energy. And I'm just talking about something that you and I would always complain about. You go to any institution which is owned by government, and the workers' attitude there is literally you need to beg for your service. Try get a driver's license, try get a passport, try and get a hospital card from a government hospital. I mean, and the list is literally endless. And the attitude, and I'm sure if I was open the phone lines or ask for comments, there will be thousands of comments flowing for people's experience. And yet these are the same people that Edward are carrying placards and saying, don't sack us, give us more money, give us more energy, give us this. But what are they giving us? And I'm talking about those within the government sector. Private, you know, it's much more difficult to dodge the system. But the government one, it's like the immune. Once you are in, you are in. You can do anything.
Well, we don't carry placards asking that people who are not working should not be disciplined. No, we don't do that. You know, we are living in a country of rules. We have rules. We are not in the jungle. Mm. There's a labor law, and then there are other rules that govern us. We are saying that before you must justify why you are sacking an employee. So if you, the employer or the manager, thinks that an employee is not performing well, please show proof. If you cannot show proof, we will not allow you to victimize people like that. People just don't understand this. And there are still many employers who think that labor or workers are their chattel. They are their goods. They can treat them the way they want. We say no. We will not permit that. There are still employers who think that anytime they want, they can just sack workers. No, we don't permit that. Now, if government is an employer, government must also abide by some of these rules.
But I'm sure you've had your own dealings. I take Vodafone. Once upon a time, they had 4,000 workers. And if you look at Vodafone and its setup and the infrastructure they had. And Space Phone at the time was able to give, Ghana 20 million cedis. I think towards leading up to Ghana at 50, they gave Ghana government 20 million towards the celebration. What if Ghana Telecom was still waiting for government to borrow money from somewhere else to come and pay them? And it's all because, not because they didn't have infrastructure, but it's owned by government, so we don't care. And that attitude seemed to, go along.
Well, I think in 2005, I had a chance to make a presentation, comment on the budget. And by then, TOR was being prepared for sale. I disagreed. One, inefficiency is endemic in the society. It's both in public and private sector. When people think that inefficiency is only confined to the public sector, that is not true. And you are journalists, go to the registrar office and find out how many companies have been registered, and by the close of the year, how many of them have collapsed because of mismanagement. We just mentioned a few of them, and we think that the private sector, a very neoliberal philosophy is the engine of growth, and we all think that. It's not the case. It's because we have few private sector operators who are efficient. If you take VRA, those public institutions, I'm telling you, look at the number of years they have managed this economy, provided energy with Ghanaian engineers, workers. I mean, you should applaud them for that. But that is not to say that the management system within the public sector is good. It's certainly bad. But we have also seen private sector intervention, which is bad. And we can Aqua Victims, which came to take over the management function of Ghana Water Company. What happened? They simply made money and went away. Did they change the situation? Because government took the wrong decision. It is investment. VRA and many of the public sector institutions have not had the requisite investment. Investment is the key, and they don't invest in them. And then over a period, the people are not able to perform. Then you tend to say that they can't perform, therefore you want to sell it out. So our point here is that the public sector is not as efficient as it should be. And there are fundamental things that should be done. For instance, why should we be working in the public sector and you don't have clocking system? You should have a clocking system to check who comes to work, who does not come to work. The penalty measures, disciplinary measures within the public sector, it's just loose. We hear people, we see them reading newspaper, we see that they are not just there, we see that they have not delivered, and no one talks about that. But they have supervisors. What are those supervisors doing? So, but we will not allow any employer, whether government or private, to run away from his responsibility and then place it on the worker by simply sending them home. That is why we ask for. And then the other thing is about wage. You see, employment is not to be linked to the fact that you must deliver goods and services. No, that is not it. You need wage. Employment is supposed to give wage.
But then you need to work to earn that wage. I mean,
Not always. Not always. All of us are entitled to have a decent living. That is why even in Europe, there's unemployment benefit. They are not linking it to productivity. Are they linking it to productivity?
We also have LEAP.
I want to tell you that, so productivity issue comes at another level.
No, but this is where you've applied and, you applied for a job, either for a reception, a machine operator, a driver. That's what I said I'm coming to do. And therefore there's an exchange of contract that, well, if you do that, I will give you X amount of money a month. And then there's a decision to say, listen, I'm not working and I need to survive, therefore hand me, some notes. But those who have applied for a particular position and are not doing it, I mean, there's just too many in the system, right from the top to the bottom. I mean, look at this ADB issue. I mean, I can list till the cow. I mean, at the moment, I think there are about 50,000 driver's licenses not done because, this person wants to buy the machine from here, that person wants to buy the machine from here, therefore there's a deadlock. I mean, and I can go on and on and on and on. La Polyclinic hasn't got a lift for the last 20 years. 20 years he hasn't got a lift, and the labor ward is on the second floor. So, I mean, and these are all government institutions, and I mean, it doesn't look good on us. Whether you're private or not, it doesn't look good on us.
It's not good, but it's also about our attitude. It's unfortunate sometimes to say this because we are Ghanaians. But Ghanaians are also very dishonest. We are very dishonest because I had agreed to come to this program. Then getting to the program or the time that the program is about to start, I say, oh, I'm just in traffic. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Whether you are paying me or you're not paying me, I have committed myself to it. I must deliver. I mean, why should we take salary when we don't earn it? And that is the unfortunate, our attitude is one thing. So sometimes for some of us, we think that when we talk about the whole economic being in crisis, the poverty level and the rest, is because of attitude. Attitude can change. And once you change your attitude, all other things will change. We have a bad attitude as Ghanaians. And we always claim that when Ghanaians go outside, they deliver. It's because you cannot misbehave there. But here, you'll find ministers going to programs late. Why? If you're a minister, so what? They have given you the time. You've agreed to it. If you know you cannot meet that time, why should you accept it? Then you come in late. People who are supposed to be there early, some other presenters, they will come in late. The workplace, the bosses come in late. I mean, it's a bad attitude. So you cannot limit it to only workers. You even also extend it to policymakers. And that is the Ghanaian attitude. And it's the one that is creating the poverty.
Let me move on to what the president says with regards to energy, that it wasn't a money issue, but it was a technical issue. I mean, there's two things on technical. Either you don't have the money to buy the technical equipment, or you don't have the brains to fix the technical equipment. So it all boils down to money. I mean, I don't know why he stopped at technical.
Well, that is his statement.
No, but I'm expecting, you see, now you're labor. So at the moment, I'm presuming you are fighting on the cause of labor.
Certainly.
And the president is saying this. So I'm expecting labor to say, no, Mr. President, it's not technical, it's money.
Well, we can also come out outright and say that it's not technical. There is technical challenges. There's also money challenges. When you talk about technical here, because when someone is not delivering on his target, it's also technical. If someone is inefficient, it's also technical. Inefficiency could mean that the person is not up to speed, is not up to the task, and therefore it's technical.
Which you and I know is not the case, because they are quite good engineers there fixing all these terminals, and they've done it since.
If the equipment itself is outmoded,
then it's money.
It's also money and technical. You get it? So all those things combine. And in any case, the technical issues arise because you don't have the money. Well, if you have the money, sometimes we know that money doesn't mean everything, but money can help you to acquire the best personnel, to acquire the up-to-date equipment to operate. And that, the equipment makes productivity go high. And then it makes people too efficient. You know, we cannot say that once you have got the brains, your brains alone can do it. You also need equipment to facilitate you to be more efficient. And in that case, if you don't have that, then you become inefficient. So that is why sometimes we also disagree with government and employers that it is workers who are not bringing up productivity. Because if you're working with outmoded equipment, you will simply spend energy and yet you will not get the desired results. So that statement is certainly, unless he comes out to explain to us again what he means by that, I think that it is both technical and financial.
I'll take a break here, and then when we come back, we'll find out. Labour says that they want the energy problem solved now. They're not going to take any later or any more excuses. They wanted it solved now. What does Labour mean by solving it now? We're coming back. Well, thank you very much for staying. I'm talking to the General Secretary. Deputy General Secretary, General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Carriway. And just before the break, I just wanted to find out what exactly the union mean by ending DUMSO now, considering all the challenges that they know the government is facing. I mean, what did Labour mean by stopping now?
It's a demand. It's a demand.
It's a demand.
It's a demand that we want the energy crisis ended now, because we've had a history, and we think that we can no longer contain it. We've also sounded that we are losing hope. Now, if you are losing hope in the system of restoring energy, the logical point to make is that please end it now. So we make that demand, that end it now.
Let me quickly move on to your National Jobs Summit. What does it entail, and what do people have to look forward to? Because, I mean, when you say jobs, I'm sure by now everybody's ear is all twinging up thinking, is there something we can do to also get jobs or facilitate jobs times like these?
Well, for many years we have been calling for a national policy on employment. We don't have that. And then it's also linking with ILO. I know we are both members of ILO, government, labor, and then employers. We need to have a national employment policy. So this job summit was organized to first and foremost launch the national policy, and then also allow stakeholders across board, from academia, politicians, employer, labor, students, and what have you, to those who are in business people, to look at how we can generate jobs. So we also looked at the productive sectors, which are mainly agriculture, industry, and services. See how linkages in those sectors can lead to job creation. Now, we also try to look at what type of education, what type of technical skills do we need, and then what type of investment is needed.
Won't this work if the nation itself had the direction it was going? I mean, like maybe we're doing agri, so now we're going to take cocoa beyond the beans to chocolate and whatever, cocoa butter, or we're going to go into shea butter, or some industry that we were pushing, maybe rubber, grow rubber, harvest it, and have a rubber industry, so that you can now have a policy where people were training. Because otherwise, I finish school and come out and find out, does anybody need what I studied?
Well, that is the unfortunate thing about our economy, because we have certainly, what we have done over the years is to abandon the import substitution strategy for development, and then go in for the export-led strategy for development. What we produce here is for the external market, to the extent that, you can see the manifestations. Even if there is no explicit, written policy or that this is what we are doing, you see the manifestations. We export almost everything. We export yams, we export charcoal, we export this, we export that. Why should we be eager to export? You know, we should look at what we consume much and then produce what we consume here. When we try to meet local demand, the excess can then be used for the external market. Now, because we target the external market, when there are upsets or problems in the external market, then the whole production system here collapses. Because cocoa is meant for the external market. All these years, we have never tried to see whether we can turn some of the cocoa to be consumed here. Very few people consume cocoa products in this country as compared to the volumes that we produce and what goes outside the country. Then you do that from one area to another. Gold, how many of us consume the products of gold here? To that extent, we never saw the need to insist that gold must be refined here. What we are interested in is that there's investors, they come there, they will give jobs. Again, you can see that we have allowed so many supermarkets or what they call malls to spring up. Foreign investment. We are not ensuring that you come to invest and that you must have about 50%, 60%, or 30% of what you stock in the mall to come from the local markets. We don't bother about that. What we know is that, oh, they will employ Ghanaians 500. But you employ the 500 and end up destroying 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 jobs. Because when you are doing the analysis, this mall, when it's set up, it will create 200 jobs. Because the sales girls and sales boys and security and the rest are all Ghanaians. I mean, these are not very good jobs. With due respect, they are not very good jobs. Right. They can dismiss them anytime. And these are young people who, they treat them sometimes with disrespect. Indecent jobs, poor jobs, and then we accept that. Meanwhile, after they have done that, they are now importing all that is put there for sale. They target you and myself, those who are in the middle class. Then we now take our attention away from the local produce that we normally go to buy our produce, buy from, and then begin to buy from the mall. So the local producers, they collapse. I believe that we are doing the wrong things, and that is the reason why you are asking whether we have direction. If you sit and expect people to give you direction, they will indeed give you direction. There are 1,001 people who can give you pieces of advice, but you must also advise yourself.
Well, fortunately, unfortunately, that's all time will allow us. Thank you very much, but I think this conversation needs to continue because I am eager to find out that is there any developing nation that made it without a direction? You know, there's a clear-cut direction that, you know something, these are the 5 industries that we are going to grow, or these are the 3 industries that we are going to grow as a country, and then we make it perfect, and then the other ones maybe we can substitute by importing. We will continue this conversation. Thank you very much, Edward. Let's say thank you to all the production team that make it happen. Tomorrow, we'll be back to do this all over again. Or rather, you will. Thank you.